candidate, and by the name of Will Uno Uno
Aloha.
Aloha. I'm sorry.
It's just like if you were in Hawaii and you would say aloha, Aloha.
Oh, okay, Aloha. Okay, that makes it a lot easy. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yes. You are one of our city councils at large.
Yes, ma'am.
You do have a history with the city. You've worked for 4 of our mayors, and you're also an attorney. Also you worked in Boston Water and Sewer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about how you got to this journey here.
So my journey here started probably 2005 when I graduated college. I'm originally born and raised in Boston. I'm from Mission Hill. The real Mission Hill, I like to say, because I grew up in Mission Hill in the 80s during the Charles Stewart era. And I was probably one of 5 kids that ever got a scholarship to go to college because of what happened in Mission Hill. The wife of the wife of Charles Stewart, her family paid all 4 years for my Carol DeMady Stewart paid for my college. Her family paid for all 4 years of my college education. After coming out of school, I thought I was going to go to the UN. Believe it or not, that was originally my dream. And I had worked on the mayor's youth council as a youth when I was in high school, and I went to Snowden, Copley High.
Okay.
And so he asked me to come work for him, and I took a job for him, being his District 8 liaison. District 8 encompasses all of Back Bay, Beacon Hill, Mission Hill, Fenway, and the Longwood medical area. And from that point on, I never left. I stayed into city government. I worked for him about till 2012 when I left him to go to law school. And
we're talking about Mayor Menino, correct?
Yes, Mayor Menino. Yeah. And then after that, and while I was there, at the time when I was in law school, I worked at Northeast University for John Tobin and Ralph Martin. Ralph Martin was the DA during the time of the Charles Stewart. See how things come.
That was an ugly time in Boston.
Very ugly time.
Yes.
Having done that, as I was graduating law school, Mayor Marty Walsh had just come into office and picked me up to come work for him. I was the housing commissioner at Inspectional Services, Boston Inspectional Services. I did that for about 4 or 5 years, and then was promoted to be the executive director and commissioner of fair housing, equity, and civil rights. Where I basically, my job was to do a couple of things. 1, I built the Human Rights Commission for the city of Boston. 2, my job at that time was to prosecute any of the housing discrimination cases across the city and public accommodation cases and civil rights violations. That's what we did, And what's interesting about that office is that it's actually controlled by HUD.
Really?
Yeah, it's actually controlled by HUD, but it sits in City Hall. The mayor picks or hires the executive director, but it's actually an office that's funded and controlled by HUD.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it was created in 1982 when, believe it or not, Diane Wilkerson and the NAACP had sued the city of Boston
I remember.
for for housing discrimination and not desegregating Boston.
Right.
So as a federal decree, that office was created to be a watchdog for that kind of thing and to write housing or help draft housing policy and steer where housing goes in the city of Boston. And so that's where I really got a deep love and understanding for housing in the city of Boston, and where the skills that I've acquired are now going to be able to serve me and help me serve the city if I'm fortunate enough to make it on the city council.
Okay, and then you also worked in the Boston Water and Sewer Commission, right? And what did you do over there?
So at Boston Water and Sewer, I am the director of health and safety.
Okay. So tell us, why are you running to be city councilor at large?
Well, I think that now is the time to meet the moment. Boston is in a crisis. We are in a serious crisis. Ms. Flint, first of all, from skyrocketing and exorbiting prices for housing. Our Boston public school system is not doing good. You know, we're graduating children who can't read at an 8th grade level, which is unheard of and just not acceptable, considering that Boston is a seat of education for the entire United States. You understand?
Yeah.
You have a huge problem on mass and caste, which is both a public health and public safety issue, because now it's become mass in every neighborhood, mass in Roxbury, mass in South End, mass in Cass, mass in the Boston Common, mass in the Back Bay, Beacon Hill,
and Grove Hall,
right, Grove Hall,
Mattapan
Square, even Mission Hill. So it's a problem that's a humanitarian issue that we have to do a better job with. Again, Boston being the biomedical hub for the entire United States, yet we can't seem to get a man-made problem under control, but yet we could fix every other issue, or we have research into every other medical issue going on. The best hospitals in the world, but yet we're struggling with this. And you've got to ask yourself why. And of course, public safety is another thing. You know, we tout numbers that Boston is the safest city in America, which is a fallacy. And the reason it's a fallacy is that, yes, we're down when it comes to homicides because our EMS is doing a really great job, our first responders, in getting people to hospitals within 2 to 5 minutes of injuries. But in terms of shootings or stabbings or assault and battery, no, those numbers are up there. And if you really dig for those numbers and talk with the police, they'll tell you, no, that's not the case, you know? So some of the things that we've touted ourselves as being are not true. The Boston City Council, you know, as I've been around the city and I go and I knock on doors in whether it's Charlestown, Beacon Hill, Mission Hill, wherever, West Roxbury, the one common theme that keeps happening is people have been calling it the clown show, you know, and there's never been a time when something like that has happened. Yes, there are times when they disagree, but they're not disagreeable. You know, all of the counselors don't even talk to each other. Then you saw what Ed Flynn wrote last week, where counselors are missing meetings. And they had a hearing that they were supposed to discuss what happened on July 4th when a lot of people didn't get paid, right? Which was a huge issue for so many people and families who were depending on that money, right? Yeah. And then also they were supposed to have a hearing on what's happening with what I would call capital improvements, sidewalks and paving of sidewalks and streets and all that kind of stuff. And they didn't have this hearing. And this is a common theme that you keep hearing about that's going on. And never has there been a time when that's been the case. You know, our city councils are usually have always been in the business of doing the bidding for the people.
They're supposed to.
They're supposed to. And this is with this group that, you know, for the last couple of years, this has not been the case, Ms. Flint. So I'm concerned. I'm deeply concerned that the city council has abdicated its duty to advocate for the people of Boston. And they treat it more like they're celebrities. It's all about selfies and Facebook, this and that. But no one is really doing the job. Meanwhile, Boston, they will all come on your show if you talk to them and tell you how they're doing all these great, wonderful things. And some of them are, you know, but collectively it is suffering, and we're all suffering because of it, because they should be really fighting for these issues that we're talking about that are critical to our city, but that's not what's happening.
So what do you think if you get in there that you can change? Because if they're not talking to each other, and that has been happening for a while, and I don't understand it, because everybody's supposed to be working for the citizens of Boston.
Yes.
But it seems like some people have their own agenda. Some people have the mayor's agenda. Some people have their own agenda. So it just doesn't, you know, it's just not jiving. And I think that all races should be contested, because no one should just sit at a seat. But if you're doing the work, I say continue to do the work. And I don't really, be honest, I don't see a whole lot of them down there doing the work. And there definitely needs to be changes from the top on down to the bottom. So I'm speechless, because it's just it seems like it gets worse and worse.
And you know, You're absolutely right. And speechless is the appropriate term, because there are things that have been happening that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this is still happening, or this is happening. And the change I can bring, first of all, is professionalism. You know, if I'm, by the grace of God, if I'm elected to the Boston City Council, I'm reaching out to everybody. I'm going to reach across the aisle. I am going to work with everyone, regardless of personal feelings or anything like that, you know, because it should not get to that point. The second thing, or equally the first thing that I'm going to do, is definitely focus on the housing situation. This is where I have an expertise. Under my office in 2022, before I left City Hall, we were able to pass what was called the Fair Housing Ordinance, which came from a study that was called the Analysis of Impediments to Fair Housing. The Biden-Harris administration made us do it, and we did it under my office. Boston became the first city to complete it, and it became a national model because of what we were able to do. But what it did is it looked at all of the impediments to housing in the city of Boston, right? When Marty Walsh first came in, you know, I remember they did what was called Imagine Boston 2030, meaning that by the time we hit 2030, we're supposed to have built 70,000 new units of housing. We've only built maybe 5. So we're probably 5%, not even 5% of the way there.
But we're still building, though. I mean, the ways some folks make it seem like we're not building. We're building, but we're building, and people are being gentrified out of here. We're building buildings, but we're not building people. Our people are being pushed out south, north, east, west, but people cannot afford to live in Boston anymore. But yet, if they work in Boston, I don't understand all that. Why? Because we're continually being gentrified out, continuously.
Yes. And what this study did was it showed that no one is supposed to pay more than 20 or 30% of their income
30%
for housing.
Yep.
You see, the average person in Boston makes anywhere between $59,000 and $61,000 a year. That's it. In March of 24, the Boston Globe wrote an article saying that to live in Boston comfortably, just to, comfortable, to be just regular, very, very regular, you have to make $125,000 a year. Boston is lumped in with Newton, Wellesley,
I know, I don't understand
Brookline.
that. I'll never understand
these
that.
are old, antiquated numbers that they put together in the 70s, that HUD put together from the 70s. And what happens is that since we're lumped in, we're suffering some things that are not really fair to the city of Boston. See, the average person in Newton, Wellesley, Brookline makes $125,000
right.
a year. You see?
Right. And so we don't, and that's why I don't understand why that medium income is set like that.
Boston can set its own AMI. Why
haven't they done that?
Bingo. And therein lies the question. These are the kinds of things the Boston City Council should be arguing and fighting for and pushing for. But if you ask them, most of them don't even know this information, to be very honest with you. Which is concerning, because all of that information lives in City Hall with them. Many of them are not even astute on a lot of the issues that they talk about. They all come in front of you and say, oh, affordable housing. But here, affordable housing is only part of the story, and here's why. To get into affordable housing, you got to be poor to get into it, Miss Flint, and you got to be poor to stay in it. If you make a little bit more money, you're going to lose your housing.
Yeah.
So people are stuck with making the decision: do I do a little better and roll the dice and now join the housing market? We're all in trying to find housing, or do I keep my housing and stay where I am? So it's a very tough decision to make. It's a sad decision.
You're caught in like a catch-22, basically.
Exactly.
I've heard Diane say that so many times about to get in, you gotta be poor, and to stay in, you gotta stay poor. Which it just doesn't give anybody any type of incentive to want to move on. But one of my issues with the housing is the deed restriction. 50 years deed restriction. I mean,
Yes.
come on. That doesn't make any sense.
This is another thing that is criminal, if you ask me, that the city of Boston is doing, because they're sitting there touting, oh, we have homes for people, but if you have a 50-year deed restriction, chances are you may pass away before that you even get to that.
Because your mortgages are only 30. So I don't
Exactly.
understand that logic, and I don't understand how they can just make a decision like that.
Exactly.
And so there's a lot of changes that need to be made in the city. And of course, it's an election year now, so everybody's out. And well, really, I haven't really seen anybody out, to be honest with you. It's just so much that is going on in the city, and some of it is just it's sinful. It's a crime, as far as I'm concerned, the things that are going on in our community. Some people don't say anything.
That's
and we're suffering. We are suffering. I was at the forum last night at the Strand Theater.
The Strand.
And I'm trying to think what they were talking about, that Aqua money. And I mean, it's just confusing. One minute they have it, the next minute they don't have it. It just doesn't make any sense. And the things that are going on and the things that are happening, we need to have more community input. We need to be down there. I keep saying we need to go down to City Hall in masses and let them audit.
An audit. Yes.
Audit needs to be done, because I don't
audit.
understand why the school budget keeps continuing to go up while the school attendance continues to go down.
That's right.
And so I don't understand why we don't have an elected school committee. I mean, these things these are, things that have been in the making. Our community have asked for these things, and we don't get them.
Well, there's a lot to unpack in that statement. I'll first start by saying, for the housing piece, what we need is workforce housing.
Mm-hmm.
Because what workforce housing does is that you build housing through public-private partnerships that will now allow you to build housing for people in the city of Boston. And then everybody, based on their income, will pay different rents based on their income. You see, so what it does is that it allows a family or a household that makes anywhere from $60,000 to $250,000, you'll provide housing for them. So obviously the better you do, the more rent you'll pay. But the thing here is that you're not going to be living check to check. Most people right now pay 50% to 70% of their income to housing.
Yeah.
They are basically living only to work. When you're supposed to work so you can actually live. Everything is in the reverse. So if we were to implement the analysis of impediment ordinance, which no one is doing or even talking about, we would start. It's a city law that's on the books. The mayor passed it in 2022, and if we were to do that and force the city to get involved in this type of way, we will start to solve our housing problem. And it's a good tool. It's a creative way. It didn't just come out of the blue. It took a bunch of the CAC and a bunch of folks, God rest his soul, Bob Terrell, who was one of my mentors, that came together, Dr. Bob Jennings, a bunch of folks to draft
James
this thing.
Jennings or John Jennings?
James Jennings.
Oh,
He's
okay.
a professor of, I want to say, at Tufts.
Yes.
Very astute man, very, deep into this kind of thing. But we have figured out the answer, but nobody is implementing it. When you look at the school department, we spend $170 million on the buses a year that can't even get the kids to school on time.
And some of them buses aren't even for Boston Public Schools. They're for charter schools and Metco students.
There you go.
So
we need to rethink what we're doing. And these are all common sense solutions. When it comes,
but you know what? A lot of people don't have common sense, and that's one of the problems. For real.
You can say that again.
I'm serious.
That's true. Common sense is not very common, and it should not be that way. But see, if they were working with each other, and if they were talking with each other, and if they were, focusing on what people in Boston are crying about, all the information is there with them. They would be tackling these things. You understand what I'm saying? The elected school committee portion, I have mixed feelings about it. I think I'm all right with a hybrid version of it, because we used to have an elected school committee, and I believe it was Mayor Ray Flynn that got rid of it. You know, I have to double check that, but I believe it was him that got rid of it. And the reason why is because we had politicized education, and it was hurting the black and brown children of the city. That's how busing and all that stuff.
But it still is hurting the black and brown people of the city.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed with an appointed.
We've never healed from busing in our school system. We've never, ever fixed it. So the thing with an elected school committee is, I don't believe in politicizing education, but I do believe that perhaps we're at a time where you could have a hybrid version, just in case, and where you have maybe 50% of them elected and the other 50 appointed, only because someone has to be responsible. And this is the reason we got rid of it, was because we said, all right, since the school committee is not going to do right by the kids, we need to have some person that we can hold accountable, which is the mayor, if anything doesn't go right with the schools. So the mayor would have at least 51% of the controlling vote to say, hey, wait a minute, you're going in a direction that's bad for these children, and can scale things back, you see. So I'm all right with trying something new, you know, but to just jump full force into it, I'm like, you know, maybe we start slow, you know, by having 50-50, you know, 50% appointed, 50% elected, go from there and see what they can do, you know. So that's my only fear, my only concern of just going full scale, even though we're living in different times, you know, which is,
and the fact that almost 80% of Boston residents said they want it.
Yeah.
You know, that's the problem. Our voices aren't being heard.
Right.
We're not being listened to
at all.
You know, and so, I just feel like, and I know a lot of other people feel like we should have an elected school committee. You know, the mayor doesn't need the power of over everything. You know, let the school committee be in charge of the schools. That's what the committee is for. We are the only city in Boston that doesn't have an elected school committee. And so our children are suffering.
I agree.
And half of them are not even going to school. We really need to do an attendance to find out who actually is going to school, because a lot of our young folks aren't.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a problem in the issue.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And it's our young folks that are suffering.
That's right.
And I remember at least 10 years ago, we had about 56,000 kids that were attending Boston Public Schools. Today, we have about 48, 47, somewhere in that bracket. And it's not because Boston is lacking kids. It's because parents are getting sick and tired of what's happening in the school situation with the schools, Boston Public Schools, and sending their kids elsewhere to educate them. You know, but of course, this is an extra burden on parents, because now you're sending your kids, if they don't get into the exam schools, now you're looking at sending them to Metco or to a private school or something like that, which adds an extra financial burden on you.
That's right.
You know, extra transportation burden on you. So again, these are things that the Boston City Council should be holding hearings on. Do you know that it was the Boston Policy Institute just this week that came out and blasted them for not holding not one city council hearing on Boston Public Schools? They haven't brought in the superintendent to talk about Boston Public Schools. There were 2 things scheduled that were on the docket for them, for the BPS to show up. None of it has happened. They're hiding instead of having hearings to let us know, as the public, what is in fact going on. They're hiding.
Of course,
some of it is controversial.
Audit.
Yeah, some of it
doesn't the city get audited? Aren't there ways that they can be audited?
Yeah. Any entity
who
can be
calls for an audit
audited.
of the city?
The city council can call for an audit. They certainly can.
I think that needs to happen.
But see, the question is, how many of them have the bravery to do it? Very few of them do. Very few have the bravery to do it.
That's why we have to educate our people and get more of our people to the polls so they can understand the importance of voting, because we can vote some of these people out of office. Remember, your vote is your voice.
Voting is your voice.
And the only time your vote don't count is when you don't cast it.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's so many issues and concerns and, that we have as community, as black people. And it gets to a point where you just be like, well, what's the use?
Right.
But we have to keep on fighting, because if we've gotten where we are today because of our fight. Because, but as a community, we have to collaborate more and not be in competition, because we're all in the same boat. We always say this: when you get stopped by a police officer, he doesn't ask you what country you're from. He looks at the color of your skin, and that's how he determines how he's going to treat you. And so these types of things continue to happen every day to us. And so, you can't continue to treat good people bad and think you're going to get away with it.
That's right.
Because there's going to be a reckoning. And so I just, I thank you. I appreciate you coming on and talking to us, because we have to hold our elected officials accountable.
We have to hold them accountable.
We elect them, get them in office, and then we go somewhere else. And then when they don't do what we want them to do, we get upset with them and fuss with them. But we have to continue from the day that they walk into that office, that seat. We have to let them know that we're there, we're here, and we're not going anywhere. And one of the things that I like about Tanya Anderson, I don't believe she's the first one, but has an advisory council. I think every city councilor should have an advisory council, so you can hear from the community.
Yes, that's smart.
It makes sense.
That's smart. That is.
And so
that's smart.
I mean, I think all city councils should have that. I also think that they should have 1 or 2 youth interns in their office.
Yes.
So they can be training our young folks.
That's true.
I
agree.
And so
I absolutely agree. I wholeheartedly agree. You're right. Actually, I've never really thought of that. Kind of like how the governor has the governor's council that advises the governor on all kinds. Even the mayor has a council, the mayor's youth council. At least that's with the youth. But the city council should have a council of advisors.
That's right.
That can say, hey, wait a minute. Here are the issues going on in
They are out
Boston.
in the community. The city councils are not, not out there like that. Some are, some aren't. I have to give a shout out to my friend Julia Mejia, because she always shows up and she supports. And so I appreciate everything that she does in our community.
Yeah, I've seen Councilor Mejia out at a lot of places, and she says she calls herself the Chihuahua on the council. That's how she calls herself, and she's very vocal about a lot of issues, and I'm sure a lot of people appreciate that.
Plus, she's gotten some ordinances passed.
Yeah, and she's got
helped
some.
us, So I mean,
but you know what happens, and what's interesting is that ever since I've been running and going to forums and so forth. What has pissed me off, or better yet, what has shocked me, is that most of the questions they ask are softball questions. Or they give you a questionnaire to fill out ahead of time, which is nonsense, because people just say whatever they want to say. And then they go there, and no one is really asking the counselors hardcore questions and saying, hey, we saw you say this, or you took a stance on a particular thing in a hearing. Let's talk about that. Why did you vote against White Stadium? Or why did you do this? Why did you do that? Can you explain your reasoning for X, Y, and Z? Like, really hold their feet to the fire. These forums, I mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anyone, but these forums have been Mickey Mouse. They've almost been a joke, because you're asking softball questions. And then when you and then most of the questions, they tell you them ahead of time, so people doctor their answers, and so when they come out, they all sound like they all sound like Jesus. They're all doing,
I always
great.
say actions speak louder than words, and if you're not doing anything, you're just talking. You're just full of air. You know.
Yeah.
We definitely need some strong voices on that city council, and so I don't. September's coming. Some races got 3 people. Some races got 11 people. So
That's true. Ours has 10.
So it's just basic. And everybody has a right to run. I'm not saying you don't have a right to run, but what are you bringing? What have you done? Really.
Right.
That's what it needs to be about. What have you done? What are you going to do? How have you positioned yourself to be in this position to run and represent people?
That's exactly it. My thing I will say to the voters is, if you like the way how things are going, then keep voting the way you've been voting. But if you want to change Boston, if you in your spirit believe that Boston can do better, we can do better. If you believe that your council can do a better job serving you and fighting for you, then give myself a chance on September 9th and November 4th, and give others that you think that could do the job a chance. We are in a very critical time in our city, and we don't have time to play. We don't have time to put people who are going to be learning on the job. We don't have time for that. We don't have time to put people that don't even have the resume to do this, because really I have always believed, and I've always seen that most people who've got on the council in previous years, those counselors were well entrenched in Boston. They really understood what was going on. They didn't always agree. That's true, but they were not disagreeable. It was never ever like what's happening today, and they certainly helped move Boston forward. Today, I mean, when voters tell you that they believe the city council's irrelevant, or call it a clown show, or have that type of feeling,
I think one of the problems is that everybody keeps saying that the city council don't have no power. The city councilors don't have no power. They do have power. They just don't. Either they don't know how to use it, or they're afraid to use it,
Correct.
or they don't want to use it.
Correct.
But they have power. They have power.
They sure do.
And they can use it. They can use it.
They sure do.
And so I don't get that, because why are you getting paid $125,000 a year if you don't have no power?
Right.
Why are you there? Anybody can run up there and be a counselor.
They are supposed to be a check and balance to the executive. They're supposed to help the administration or the executive get things done that makes sense for the city, but also be a check and balance that says, wait a minute, hold on. Let's think about this. This thing or this policy or whatever we're trying to do here is going to hurt people or may have some adverse effects. Let's talk about it. Let's look at it. You know what I mean? Be a check and balance. You're right. They absolutely have power. But again, what's happening is you have people there who are afraid to take on controversial things. And the only reason why it's controversial is because of the relationships they have, or they just feel like they don't want to touch it. It's a hot button subject or something. But we can't run because what's happening is that they're gambling with our lives.
That's right. People power with Priscilla. We are the people. We have the power. I have Will Una.
That's right. Come on, Priscilla. You got it. You almost say aloha, anoha.
Will Anoa. I'll get it. I will. It takes time. When
you think of Hawaii. Aloha.
Aloha. Anoha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I'm not offended. I've gone through this my entire life since I was a little boy.
Okay. I don't feel bad.
I actually enjoyed seeing people try.
So this is People Power with Priscilla, and we are talking to one of our city councilor at large candidates, and so we have there are a lot more that are running, and September 9th is election day. September 9th.
It's right around the corner.
Yes, it's not far at all. So the last day to I believe, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I think I can't remember, so I'm not going to say. I know it's in August, but I can't remember the exact date. And I know there's always the early voting.
Yes.
And vote by mail.
Vote by mail.
Please, people, exercise your right to vote. The way they're trying to get rid of our rights. They're trying to take us off of the polls, off of the voting list. We can't continue to let this happen. We have to stand up. This is 2025.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
So we're 5 years from 2030. But the things that are happening, I mean, if you just look up, you'll see that things are happening. They're happening fast, and it's bad, you know.
That's true. And if we don't do something about it 10 years from now, I can assure you none of us are going to be here, because we're going to push. We are going to be pushed out. It's moving that fast. Fast.
We have a lot of problems, community. We have a lot of issues, and it's about time that we come together and work together.
Yes.
No matter what our struggles are, no matter what our beliefs are, but we know that we are the people, and we do have the power. We just have to use it. We can no longer let these elected officials dictate to us. I mean, it's a mess down there in Washington. The State House, City Hall. I mean, everywhere you look at, the government has been the enemy, for real. The government, I'll tell you.
We got out of the business of fighting for people and got into another kind of business, of corporate greed and private interests and things like that. And we have we have abdicated our duty of being in the business of fighting for people. So you are absolutely correct on that statement.
What's going on downtown now? I know that they were trying to, at one time, they were talking about taking those commercial buildings from the people that no longer had their businesses downtown, and they were thinking about turning them into some type of housing. Where did that go?
Well, I think it's still a discussion. That's not a bad idea. COVID did give us the answer to some of these problems, because people have asked, where are we going to build? Because Boston is landlocked. A lot of the institutions have bought up a lot of our land. So you can't necessarily build out. You got to build up.
Right.
So a lot of those buildings can be converted, or even the school buildings that have been closed down, you can convert them because they're already structured for housing. You can convert them into housing.
So why are all these schools being closed?
Because the city cannot keep up with maintaining them. Many of these buildings are old, and I don't agree. Let me just say, with closing school buildings, that's not my thing. But where they have done it, I think they can do something with those buildings and convert them into housing. That's another thing that hurts our kids, is the environment they're in, where the buildings don't have air condition. They're not air conditioned. They're old. The facility, everything's falling apart. So you're sending a message to the kids. You don't really care about them, because when the kids go there, if you're in an environment where, it's raggedy, it's hard to inspire learning. The institutions spend so much money on their facility. If you go to any of them, they look nice. The area invites you to actually want to sit down, learn, research, do whatever. It's very suited for that, and that's not what we're doing for our children. Rather, we're trying to build a $200 million soccer stadium. And I'm not saying White Stadium shouldn't be done over, but that's not the priority right now, when we could be pouring that money into the trades or our schools, Madison Park or the People's Academy. These are things that we need yesteryear.
Yes.
But we're spending it on things that they just shouldn't be a priority right now. And if we wanted to do that, we don't have to spend that much money for it. You understand? So our priorities are mixed up right now.
Not our priorities. their priorities.
Their priorities. Their priorities are mixed up right now.
Because
Yes.
our priorities are mixed up. It's just that people aren't listening, you
Yes.
know. And unfortunately, that is a problem. And so therefore, we do have a mayor's race coming up. I mean, them 4 years went by fast too.
Oh my God.
I
Went
mean,
by
it's-
fast.
Them
Oof.
4 years just flew.
It flew. It absolutely flew. You're right. Even I was just saying, I can't believe it's July 31st. I mean, tomorrow we're in August.
Yep.
And then 30 days from that, back to school.
Yep.
And it just feels like the kids just got out of school just literally last month. So I my heart is with the kids. I totally, I feel for them, because it seems like summer's getting shorter and shorter, and time is flying by super fast.
Well, I'll tell you, the older you get, the quicker it flies. So
Oh, please
it's
don't
flying
say
a
that.
lot faster for me than it is for you. But we have to continue to do this work. We have to continue to pour out, and pour into our youth. You
Yes.
know, that's why we have the Marcus Anthony Hall
Yes.
Educational Institute, because I'm trying to pour into these young folks about advocacy, leadership, civic engagement. Speak up, speak out. You have a voice. And that with all this technology and stuff, there's nothing that we can't do.
That's right.
There's nothing that we can't do, and so we just have to band together and get it done.
One of the things I've been saying is that why haven't we? There's a couple of things. One, make the institutions pay their fair share of taxes.
Pilot payment in lieu of
That's
taxes.
right, in lieu of taxes. Mayor Tomanino put this forward, and nobody has touched it maybe since
But when he put it
2014,
forward,
13.
but when he put it forward as a voluntary thing. He didn't make it an ordinance. He didn't make it, you have to. It was just, if you want to, it's voluntary. You don't have to really do it if you don't want to. And that's what happened. He could have made it a law right there when he first did it, but he didn't. So that's why we're in the situation we are now, because I believe if they had to enforce that pilot back then, 5, 10, 25%, whatever, it would have really, really helped. These colleges are billionaires. They got money over hand and fist,
Yes.
And yet our public schools suffer. Housing, they've taken over Austin Brighton. They've taken
right.
over Mission Hill,
right.
Roxbury. All these places that they're just dorms now. They're not
That's
even
right.
building 3 and 4 family houses anymore. So Menino had the opportunity to do that, but he didn't. And now it's like 30 years later.
Well,
and so there's a group actually that's working on the pilot. I don't know exactly where they're at with it, but they've been working on it for about like 4 or 5 years,
well,
trying to get it enforced, create a law.
He certainly started it, and they were doing it. And again, these are things the council can, because the tool is there. Mm-hmm. The tool is there, ma'am. Mm-hmm. The council can easily advocate and fight for this, because it makes perfect sense. Harvard owns more land in Boston than it does in Cambridge, but yet it has a Cambridge address.
I believe that.
Mm-hmm. We've given them everything. It costs $75,000 a year to go to BU. Mm-hmm. So that means getting out of undergrad, you're going to be about $300,000 in debt, or close to $300,000 in debt, just for undergrad. We're not talking about grad school. We're not talking about med school, law school, engineering. This is undergrad. It's unreal what they're doing, and they don't do anything to help Boston. Nothing. Nothing at all. They are in the for-profit business. So since that's the case, if they paid their fair share of taxes, the city's budget would double or triple overnight. Seriously. Would double or triple overnight. And we would have the money to fix Mass and Cass overnight. We'd have the money to build the type of housing we need. We would have the money to redo the schools. We can do this. Like, the answers are there. They are certainly there. And, we're letting these guys get away with murder.
So Okay, so you said that it can be done. So I'm gonna call somebody that I know that's been very instrumental in this,
Yeah.
and find out where they're at.
Yes.
Because if it can be done, if the city councilor has the power to do that, then it needs to be done. Period.
They
In the
can band
conversation,
together
let's do it.
and push it. They can strengthen the mayor's hands to do it. They can do this. But again, they have to have the bravery and the heart to do this. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand exactly what you're
they
saying.
have to care enough about people to say, wait a second, I don't care if you donated to my campaign or not.
Mm-hmm.
This is the right thing to do, because we're losing. We're losing. Most of the kids that are coming to many of these schools are international, wealthy international students.
Yep.
How many of our even Boston Public School kids get accepted to Harvard or BU or Northeastern?
Well, we do have a
you know?
student that got graduated from BU. She's
Yeah, but that's
at one.
one out of how many?
I don't know.
You know, so it's not as if
In
they
fact,
are
I
partners
heard-
with us.
Yeah, in fact, I heard, and I don't know. I don't know if it's true, but I heard the percentage of black people that go to BU is very, very low.
It's extremely low.
I heard 4%. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's
I
low.
wouldn't doubt that. Probably
And-
lower.
And you know, they say they want to help. They say they want to do all these things, but action speaks louder than words. And I don't
Their way
see
of
it.
helping is if you have a family day, maybe they may buy the water or the ice cream or something minuscule that's pennies to them. That's nothing. But if they would adopt some of these schools, right, and bring and support them both financially and with manpower, educators, now we're talking about lifting the tide and bringing the kids up.
Exactly. Right? Yep.
We're talking about supporting it and creating an environment where students can actually learn.
Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Sister Priscilla. How are you doing?
I'm good, Grace. How are you? Can't hear her?
Mm-mm.
Hold on. 1 second. I think we're having technical difficulties. I can hear you. The call. I can't. My guest can't hear you. Oh, okay. We found it. Technical difficulties. Okay, go ahead,
Thank you
Sister
for
Grace.
everything that you do for the community. And
Thank you
I'm
for-
I'm calling in support of White Stadium.
Okay, tell us why you support White Stadium.
Because first of all, White Stadium in Franklin Park is the only stadium, the only park that black people have been going to for centuries. I've been going to since I was a kid. We don't go to the Honor Arboretum or the Jamaica Pond or the Fenway Park or the TD Garden. For years, we didn't feel safe going to those places, or we couldn't afford to go to those places. So the Franklin Park and White Stadium, that's where black people went. And for years, for over 40 years, the city of Boston stopped investing in the black community, Roxbury, North Dorchester, and Mattapan. And the city of Boston owes us the reinvestment into our community, the reinvestment to White Stadium. I grew up with White Stadium, going to events, concerts, and of course, Boston Public Schools sports. And our youth are not able to enjoy White Stadium. So where other groups, other neighborhoods got their investments from the city into those parks and stadiums that's in their neighborhood, our community was excluded. So we're owed this, like we're owed reparations, we're owed the reinvestment into White Stadium, Franklin Park. Yes, so I support that. A lot of people, newcomers, they don't know the history of what White Stadium meant to the black community. Our parents brought us there. They cooked out there. We played in the park on Cedar Street. We went to the zoo. You could ride cars and motorcycles in Franklin Park. We had Elma Lewis House in the Playhouse. So this investment in our community for over 40 years, yes, we're owed that. And another thing is soccer. The government has signed a pact with FIFA. So FIFA is the organization that promotes and organizes soccer in the world. They have 40 billion fans.
Grace, I'm gonna have to catch you because we only have 1 minute.
So,
maybe we can finish this conversation next week. We'll give your last your comments and your email. Someone wants to reach out to you and help you. 1 minute. Thank you, Grace, for calling. Appreciate you.
You're welcome.
All right.
All right. So you can find me at Wilford Boston on Instagram and wilfordboston.com. That's the website. Or info@wilfordboston. You can email me.